Hello and welcome to another Naturally Adventurous podcast. I'm Charley Hesse and I'm here as always with my friend Ken Behrens.
Hi folks. You're on the road again, eh?
I am. You may hear some ambient noise in this podcast. I'm actually in a cafe right now, so you've got the coffee being ground in the background and some sort of soft music playing.
It's very atmospheric.
So yeah, still traveling. It's still the school vacations, so after last week we did a little trip. We went home for a couple of days, and then we've come away for another week down in sort of central Thailand.
It's a pretty long drive, right? Sort of, 10, 12 hours?
Yeah, probably 12 hours, so we broke it up on the way. I tried to find an interesting reserve to visit, so we drove 6 hours, and then we stayed in a little cheap hotel just outside a wildlife sanctuary that I hadn't been to before. So, and then we spent the morning going around there, and then we continued down to where we are at the moment. So, on the way we went to a place called Hua Kang Wildlife Sanctuary.
Kang means strong, right?
Kang. It can be. In my Thai lessons, I always say, doesn't this mean this? And they were like, no, that's Kang.
Oh,
Kang.
Tonal
so
language.
There's a good chance.
It's a different gang, not the Kang I was thinking of.
Very, very probably a different Kang. I don't know. Anyway, but it's famous for mammals. It's the sanctuary in Thailand that I think has the largest population of tigers. And it's actually, people actually do see tigers there. You know, it's not a very famous place to see tigers,
Really?
Thailand, but
No.
they are occasionally seen there. And also there's things like wild dogs, leopards, and lots of other interesting wildlife. So we thought we would go and, seeing as we're sort of in a bit of a mammal drive at the moment, we thought we'd go in there and see what mammals we could find. So, I wasn't really expecting to see a tiger or a leopard or whatever, but there's some interesting deer there. So we went to the headquarters of the sanctuary, and there was a nice sort of grassy area, and there was a lot of hog deer there, which I'd never seen in Thailand before.
Oh, yeah.
Asian hog deer, kind of weird looking things. They've got like a kind of heavy, they do look a bit piggish, got kind of a heavy body. So there was quite a few of those, and then there was also elds deer. Have you seen elds deer before?
Never seen it. That's sort of a Cambodian thing, right? That's where most
you
people
see
see
it
it.
in Cambodia, just because, it was at one point distributed all across Southeast Asia. And they're very interesting. They've got very interesting shaped antlers, as well as the sort of regular ones that sort of come out at the sides. They have these sort of prongs that sort of face forward. And they're an endangered species. And one of the cool things is that they're pictured on the carvings of Angkor Wat. So you go around Angkor Wat and you can see all these scenes of wars and daily life and whatever. And then you get these elds deer that are pictured there that are almost wiped out of Southeast Asia, and just still present in a few places. But yeah, we went and saw elds deer in there, which is pretty cool.
So how's the beat up $1,000 Toyota performing?
Oh, it's great. I tell you, it's absolutely amazing. It's got that feel, when you're driving a car and it starts to make a funny noise, and then your attention goes to your wallet. You can just feel that money is going to start seeping out of your wallet in the near future. It's like, that noise could cost you $1,000 or $2,000, could be some engine or gear or whatever. It just sounds solid. You just drive along in this thing and it just sounds like it's going to drive forever. It's amazing.
Probably will, as a Toyota. 500,000 kilometers.
Oh, these old Toyotas especially, they're fantastic. Anyway, so we drove all around there. We were actually leaving, and there was a car pulled over, and we sort of asked what they were seeing, and they had a couple of golden jackals by the side of the road, and we sort of sneaked out and looked over the other car, and they were just sort of sat down there in the forest, and we got some photos, and that was a new mammal for Felix as well.
That's actually a wolf.
I tell you, we were looking at it. The Thai people, I guess they didn't know the word for fox, and they were going wolf, and I was like, whoa. And you look at it, and it looks like a little miniature wolf.
No, it
It's
is
quite thick.
Yeah, there was recent genetic analysis,
furry
and
pelt.
it's basically a mini wolf. It's not a jackal. It's
that's
a
amazing.
totally different sort of branch of the evolutionary tree from like blackback jackal and side-striped jackal and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, Felix was looking at it. He says, "Daddy, it looks like a wolf." I was like, yeah,
Nailed it.
It does.
Budding
Yep.
taxonomist.
Yep. But it was great, and when you went in there. Oh, you know what else we saw was green peafowl,
Ooh, that's an amazing bird.
endangered species. Yeah, and we were birding along the entrance road, and they had these huge trees, big teak trees, and it just had that feeling of really kind of undisturbed habitat. It was like must have been what it felt like, in huge areas of Thailand before it was all totally developed.
Yeah.
And it just felt like, you could see anything there. And the fact that there's still tigers there and leopards and
Right.
and all these like full set of wildlife, it just gave you that feeling of what it must have been like hundreds of years ago.
It's like a time travel thing. That's something a lot of people don't get about why I always seek out wild, natural places when I travel. It's not only that I just want to see XYZ birds. It's more like I want to see what this place really is. And, I want to see what it was like before humans got to work on it. And to me, that's like the most meaningful thing you can see in any given place is like, well, what should this really be for like all of history except the last 200-300 years?
Yeah. And I think in this reserve as well, they had gawa, these huge buffalo, and
That's an
smaller one,
amazing animal. Yeah.
banteng.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think these things would have just been roaming in huge numbers, through this sort of deciduous forest, sort of
Wow.
in the past, and it just had that wonderful feeling of this kind of virgin habitat. So it was wonderful, and there was loads. It was quite easy birding going in. There was lots of big trees and birds sitting around. There was all these big numbers of yellow-footed green pigeons perched up, and red-billed blue magpies, and a lot of and black-headed woodpeckers were common there.
Oh, wow.
So there are a lot of really
Nice.
attractive birds going in, and these green peafowl were like calling all over and flying across the road, and it was a pretty special place. Yeah, so that was a nice place to break up our journey.
So now you're all the way down on the southern coast looking for shorebirds and such.
Yeah, so we passed Bangkok, and then we've come down near Phetchaburi, and my son was saying that he really wanted to see spoonbill sandpiper, so we've been really trying yesterday and again this morning, and I think he's had about 25 lifers, just all these different shorebirds and stuff, and big numbers. I mean, we had flocks of hundreds of great knots and hundreds of black-tailed godwits, and thousands of redneck stints and sandplovers, and it's been really spectacular. But now you're talking about one spoonbill sandpiper amongst these tens of thousands of birds, so it's not an easy find. And often when you go to these places, sometimes you'll see a birding group there or some birders, and they're already on it, so the thing you do is just to walk up to them and say, "Oh, a spoonbill sandpiper," and they point it out. But today, there was no one there, so we were having to sort of do things the hard way, and unfortunately we didn't see the spoonbill sandpiper. But we'll try again in a few days' time on the way back.
Is Felix pretty keen to see the spoonbill?
He is, yeah. He's got that thing about rarity, and he really wants to see
Ooh.
it. But one of the reasons we came down this way is we've got some friends that have moved down here. One of his best friends from school last year moved down here, so we're going to go and spend Thanksgiving with them, which being British has absolutely no meaning to me at all. But we're visiting Americans, so it's often a big and they were like, yeah, come and spend Thanksgiving. So it's a big thing.
There's nothing to be thankful for.
To do so, yeah.
What would I be thankful for?
Yeah, well, would have been nice to be thankful for seeing a spoonbill sandpiper, but that's unfortunately not happened.
Sounds like fun.
Anyway, so how's things with you?
I've
Any news?
just been at home the last week. Bit of very sad news in the birding world. Ned Brinkley died. You might not have known who he was. But he was this very prominent American birder, East Coast, one of these people I really grew up looking up to, because he just, I don't know, he was one of these authority type birders where, you know, if you weighed in on an identification, it was like, well, that's what it was. I never actually met him in person. You know, grew up sort of admiring him and seeing his name in ABA publications, and yeah, I guess he died. He was traveling in Ecuador and he just died very suddenly. Haven't heard a lot of details, but big loss. Just sad. Very shocking for the U.S. birding community, and shocking for me too, because he was a big fan of our podcast, and he sent me a bunch of really encouraging messages early on. And, you know, just hearing that from somebody of such high stature in the birding community, and also somebody who's very literary and very attuned to language. You know, he spoke a whole bunch of languages. He was a professional editor. That was extremely encouraging for me, and really part of the reason why I wanted to keep doing this podcast early on. And so, yeah, I never met him, but he did touch my life in a small way, and it was very, very sad to hear that. Big loss to the American birding community, Ned Brinkley. Hard to believe. I think he was in his early 50s, so he was really in the prime of life.
Really? It's very young, eh?
Yeah. So, yeah, you don't take anything for granted. These.
No.
Maybe that's been the lesson of 2020 in the weird way. It's like appreciate what you have while you have it.
Yeah. Yep. Sometimes you don't have second chances, eh?
Yeah, indeed. It's a good thing to remember with your family and all sorts of things.
Yep. Okay, shall we? So today, I think we're gonna crack on with your top 10 mammals, eh? So
yep.
I think we've done number 10 was the wildebeest, and number 9 was a fusa from Madagascar. So I believe your number 8 is cheetah.
That's right. Yep.
So special animal.
Oof, amazing animal. This is, if some of the things we've talked about on our top 10 lists, we have to kind of explain what they are or justify why they're amazing. I think this one sort of stands for itself. Like, everybody knows what a cheetah is. It's well known as the world's fastest animal. They can sprint up to 70 miles an hour or something like that. Incredibly fast land animal. Peregrine's a lot faster in the air, but so cheetah's an amazing animal. But my first sighting of cheetah was particularly remarkable. Although I have to admit, it's one of these things where I think I appreciated it more in retrospect than I did at the time. So this happened within about 10 days of when I moved to Africa. So I flew to Cape Town, and I got installed there at the sort of the tropical birding office that used to be in Cape Town. And I was there for a couple days, and then I headed to Ethiopia for, I don't know, almost 8 weeks or something, learning Ethiopia. And I traveled, part of it I did with Keith Barnes, recce, like a scouting trip on our own, and then part of it was joining a tour that was guided by Christian Boyks. So it was like this amazing overload introduction to African birds. Everything was new, and it was incredible. Basically, the first thing that Keith and I did, because of the plan for this whole sequence of things in Ethiopia, was we headed to extreme southern Ethiopia. So we basically, we drive south out of Addis, and we drive all day, and we get into the kind of endless dry brush country in southern Ethiopia. It's the Somali Maasai biome, thorn scrub. Great birding. There's a whole bunch of birds that are restricted to that biome. And I'm just, everything is new to me. Like, I don't know that I'd seen black-shouldered kite at that point. It was like, whoa, black-shouldered kite, whoa, hammerkop. I was, big cats in general, and cheetah in particular, were not even on my radar as like something to look for.
Really?
I was just so happy to be seeing all these new birds, and just amazing to be in Africa driving through the Rift Valley. But basically, maybe on our 3rd day in Ethiopia, which is sort of my, 10th day in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa, Keith and I were driving along a road in a remote part of southern Ethiopia, and suddenly spotted a huge cheetah walking across the road in front of us. And then she was followed by 2 sort of half-grown cubs. They just walked across the road and disappeared into the brush. Keith is a South African. You know, he spent his whole life in the wilds of Africa. He was absolutely flabbergasted to see cheetah. You know, this is not in a national park or a reserve of any kind. It's just scrub in the middle of nowhere. He was flabbergasted. I just couldn't believe what had happened. I hadn't been. So this was my first African big cat. You know, I saw cheetah before I saw lion or leopard. It was just absolutely like a thunderbolt out of the blue sighting. And I guess in retrospect, I've come to appreciate just how rare cheetah is in the place where we saw it. Cheetah's pretty rare overall. I just looked up some numbers, and there's about 6,700, just shy of 7,000 mature cheetahs left in the world.
Really?
Wow. Cheetah is an animal that it was all over Africa, all the way up to North Africa. It was all through Central Asia, and it was all the way through India. So it had this massive range, and it's been reduced 89%. 89% of its range, it's been eliminated from, and it's an endangered animal now, or I think it's vulnerable on the IUCN Red List. But not only that, the main strongholds for cheetah are, I guess Namibia is number 1, and then East Africa has pretty good population. But the sort of those North African populations are down to a couple hundred individuals. So,
Really?
So not only was I just stumbling onto the hardest to see of the big cats on one of my first days in Africa, I was seeing a representative of, one of the rarest populations of the rarest big cat. It was just one of these, like, enormously improbable sightings. And it was also a bit like you say about, you suddenly realize that you're in a pretty wild place. When you're driving through this dry brush and it's sort of hot in the middle of the day, and then suddenly a cheetah walks across the road, and it just gave me this feeling of like, Africa is wild. This kind of life-affirming feeling of, yep, there's still big cats walking around this landscape. It's kind of heartening. Yeah, and then subsequently I've seen lots and lots of cheetahs, and I've always just loved seeing this animal. It's just a spectacularly beautiful animal.
Gorgeous, yeah.
I guess they only weigh about 100 pounds. People always think they're much bigger, but they're super slim. They have this wasp waist, like a greyhound. They're just built for speed. These big, long legs. And I guess they also have claws that are always deployed, which helps them run and turn quickly, unlike most cats, which have retractable claws. So very unusual animal.
You were mentioning about Namibia being one of the strongholds for cheetahs, and I think it is. But there's some conservation problems there, because a lot of the areas where they're found, they have these sort of private game farms with them, where the landowners don't particularly like cheetahs very much, because they sometimes kill their
Livestock, yeah.
So one of the projects they had was with these dogs that I think dogs that look like sheep. You know this story.
I think we heard this from your friend when we visited him in central Namibia, right? But I don't remember the details. So
yeah, it's something like the sheep's got like sort of, I think they've got like white fluffy wool, and these dogs, they look kind of the same. They've also got this like white fluffy fur, so it's a dog that looks like a sheep. And I think when they're a puppy, they throw them in with the sheep, and they just grow up being a sheep. And they grow up sort of quite big, and then they spend their whole life with these sheep just as a sheep. And the sheep sort of roam around. And then sometimes they come in contact with cheetahs, but then they're so sort of protective of the other sheep that these dogs will actually chase away the cheetahs. So it's a way of protecting your livestock without having to resort to killing the cheetahs.
I hadn't remembered the details of that. It's fascinating, eh?
Yeah.
It's amazing that they would become so sheep-like, but then they still have enough of the dog nature that they'll actually chase away a cheetah when threatened.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Is it Anatolian sheepdogs or something like that? Yeah, there's a cheetah conservation organization where a friend of mine was working as an ecologist. And Ken and I actually, we stopped in to meet this friend of mine, Tarek, who I think also listens to our show sometimes.
Hi, Tarek.
He sort of took us around his center and he took us around the center and explained some of the projects. And one of the projects they did was this sheepdog project. But yeah, it's kind of a little funny side story. You saw cheetahs straight away. It took me many months to see cheetah, because I was mainly, while you were going off to Ethiopia and East Africa, I spent most of my time guiding my first few years in Africa, in Namibia and South Africa, where you also get cheetahs, but they're not very common in the places that we visit, So there's a few in Etosha and there's a few in Kruger, and eventually, because I did so many trips, I ended up seeing some, but it took a while. But if you really want to see cheetah, one of the best chances to see them, I think, is probably in East Africa, like in Kenya or Tanzania, right?
Yeah, that's basically the Masai Mara Serengeti ecosystem is the best place to see them. Quite a low-density cat. They're really, people think they're this big predator, but they get bullied by just about everything. Hyenas, lions, leopards, even jackals. A little group of jackals can chase a cheetah off a kill. So I think they naturally might have been uncommon, even though they had a big range. And then as their range has been fragmented, then there's just all these additional pressures from humans as well.
Yeah.
And then obviously, killing because they eat goats and all that sort of thing. But
It was interesting in I think, where were we? It might have been on a Tanzania tour. I think there's some. Is it in Ndutu where you see a lot of
Ndutu
cheetahs? Yeah. So we were in there and we came across two animals. I think it was. I don't know if it was two brothers or a sort of like an almost fully grown cub with its mother. Well, there was two, and they just made this kill. We'd missed it, but I'd never seen two animals eating so quickly. They were absolutely speed eating. They were just like like that. Just, and they were both sort of laying down, so they couldn't be seen so easily, and they were just gorging themselves on this recent kill. I guess it was maybe some kind of gazelle. And I think the reason they do that is just because they get driven off their kills very easily by other carnivores.
Yep, absolutely.
So, yeah,
totally different than the vibe at a lion kill, where these lions, they're literally lying around and they're sticking their bellies in the air and they're just not a care in the world.
Take their time, and they were fat. They were just eating as much as they could, as quickly as they could. Hey, have you seen a cheetah kill? Because I still haven't seen that.
Nope. I've seen him hunting a bunch of times and thought I was on the verge of seeing a kill, and still haven't. It'd be an amazing thing to see, that burst of speed. Man, it'd be quite special.
Yeah. But even though they are so quick, it's only for very short distances. So they really need to get close to their prey to have a successful kill. And these gazelles and stuff, they're almost as quick. And if they see the cheetah before, then there's no chance. I think a lot of their kills don't, or a lot of their hunting are pretty unsuccessful, aren't they?
Yep, that's right. Yeah, people always think, cheetahs are so fast, it must be easy for them to catch prey. But no, they've got that burst, but they have to get incredibly close before they actually spring.
I just looked up on my phone, and the name of that sheepdog is called the Anatolian sheepdog.
Okay, Anatolian sheepdog.
So if anyone's interested, you can check it out. It's a pretty ferocious dog that looks like a sheep.
If anybody out there has a cheetah problem, we definitely recommend Anatolian sheepdogs.
Yep. Anyway, very cool mammal. Really one of my favorites too. So that's okay to move on to your next one.
Yeah, let's do it.
And your number 7 is brown hyena, and then this is the first one of yours that I still have yet to see. And I'm actually pretty gripped
Oof.
by this.
You should be. You should be.
The brown hyena. So yeah, let us know what was your story with that.
Nah, it's a great animal. Yeah, just a little background about brown hyena. There's a couple different hyena species. What is there? 4 hyenas, something like that. This one is restricted to southern Africa. Basically, gets a little bit further north, up into maybe Zambia and Angola. But it's sort of an animal of arid country, and it's just a really good-looking animal. They've got really long, shaggy fur. It almost looks like they're wearing a cape. And then they've got these funny, like, skinny striped legs sticking out of their cape, and then these big, mostly furless ears. These big kind of triangular, very expressive ears, and then a big, broad snout, which is typical of hyenas. Great animal, and not seen all that often anywhere. Kind of occasionally seen a lot of places. But
so they're quite a bit smaller than a spotted hyena, right?
Yeah, not that much, but yeah, maybe 30% smaller, something like that. They're so fluffy that I think they look bigger than they actually are in terms of weight.
Right. Yeah.
So it's you tend to bump into a lot of spotted hyenas all over Africa, any kind of safari place. They're just fairly conspicuous and common. And brown hyena is very different. It's just very low density. It's quite nocturnal. One weird thing about them is that they really like scavenging along the coast. At least historically, I think the Afrikaans name is strandwolf, like beach wolf.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They would scavenge Cape fur seal colonies and things like that, or like maybe dead animals
would
that
sort
washed
of
up.
eat the sort of afterbirth. They'd eat the sort of placenta and try and feed on like little baby Cape fur seals and stuff.
So quite a different animal, quite a different kind of strategy. They're not like the imposing predator that a spotted hyena is, where they form big packs and they can sort of chase away lions and that sort of thing. Like, they're more of a scavenger, more solitary, but very cool animal. But I guess the reason this animal is on my top 10 list is because of the nature of the sighting. My first brown hyena sighting was very memorable. It was during the World Cup, the Soccer World Cup in South Africa. And my 2 brothers actually visited me during that World Cup. And we spent like 6 weeks driving all over South Africa, visiting a whole bunch of different parks, also going to football games, soccer games, and just had a great time. But one of the places we went was Kalahari National Park, which is... There's this weird northwestern spur of South Africa that kind of jams up between Namibia and Botswana, really into the heart of the Kalahari biome, which it's actually not a desert. It's like a dry savanna type environment. And so that's prime place for brown hyena, but still quite hard to see. But we were at one of the camps in the national park one night, and they have a little, like a hide with a spotlight. I don't think there's actually water there, but it was sort of a riverbed, and so you can walk out, and there's like a little observation hide with a bench, and you can look out into the darkness, and you can see what comes into the spotlight. So it's quite exciting. I think looking for animals at night is always exciting, and there's this sense that like anything can just appear. And when we got there, it was sort of quiet, but there was a bunch of black-backed jackals just scavenging moths off of the spotlight. It was pretty cool to see these little jackals just snapping up moths. And the jackals are these funny little characters. Like, they always look like they're up to no good, but they're not really. They're kind of playful and little dog-like things. And then at some point, the jackals all just scattered in every direction. We're like, what's going on here? And out of the darkness walked this brown hyena. And it was just like, it seemed like this kind of evil being. it had the kind of feeling of like, whoa, this is an imposing creature. Now, obviously, it's not evil in any sense, but it had this, like, with these little skinny jolly jackals snapping up moths. The contrast with this big, broad-muzzled, shaggy hyena was really striking. And it came out of the darkness, and it seemed like it was kind of like part of the darkness that was materializing into the spotlight. It was just this really striking, memorable sighting, and it walked right up to the hide. So, I mean, you're looking this thing in the eyes.
Really?
This big... And, I mean, you say it's smaller than a spotted hyena, which it is, but compared with the jackals, and in the darkness, it felt absolutely enormous.
Yeah.
And I think so. When we finally left the hide, my brothers and I all just kind of had the same comment, like, "Whoa, that was an imposing animal. Like that was something."
Wow.
And in saying it had this like evil feeling, I love hyenas. They're some of my favorite animals, and I actually kind of enjoy the fact that they're just these like vicious creatures. They just do whatever it takes to survive. They'll eat anything. They'll hunt anything. Like I really dig hyenas. A lot of people seem to kind of dislike them, but I enjoy all hyenas, and that brown hyena was a remarkable sighting.
Amazing.
Yeah. And just to grip you all further, I'll tell you I've seen it a couple times subsequently.
I know I think you had it in the desert in Namibia as well, eh? When
Yep.
you were arriving
Yep.
late on the coast one day. I remember you telling me that story. Oh, so when Ken and I did this little road trip together in Namibia, up to the north, and we stopped in to see my friend at the Cheetah Conservation Fund, where he sort of explained about the sheepdogs and stuff like that. They had several cheetahs that were kept there that I don't know if they were rescue cheetahs or whatever, but they had a population of all these enclosures with cheetahs in that they were looking after. But they would feed them, they would have carcasses of cattle or goats, whatever, that they would feed. And then all the bones that they had left over, they threw in this pile just along the entrance road in this little kind of graveyard for animals. And my friend said, actually, that was a really good place to see brown hyena. So sort of on the way out, I remember stopping, and he said he often saw them there. We were sort of driving along there backwards and forwards, trying to see this brown hyena there, but there was no sign of it. And at nighttime in the desert on the coast in Namibia as well, I've driven around quite a bit at night looking for it and still yet to see it. So that is one of my biggest wanted mammals in South Africa. And that park as well, the Kalahari Transfrontier Park, is really a place that I'd love to go to one day. It sounds pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. It's very, very wild. It's completely unfenced. All the animals you see, they're totally unconstrained. They're, even people don't realize this, but Kruger is pretty much fenced. It's a huge area, but it's fenced, at least along most of the boundary. But Kalahari is just 100% wild, deep Kalahari, red sand dunes. It's just the kind of the light is spectacular in that place. One funny thing, when we went to Kalahari, none of us had a lot of money at that point, and so we rented the cheapest little car we could. It's like little tiny sedan rental car, and it was like the only non-4x4 driving around in Kalahari, because the roads are not very good. They're very washboarded kind of gravel roads. And the South African, the classic safari thing is they've got their big Land Rover, and then everybody has like a trailer behind it that has all their camping kit, and it's like full-on safari setup with like you might say everything except the kitchen sink, but they actually do bring the kitchen sink. Literally, there's a sink, and there's a full braai barbecue setup, and And so
It's
these
a big thing. It's a big
Oof.
part of the culture, going around these parks and being well set up and camping. They love it. They absolutely thrive on this kind of
trekking. It's like it's in the culture, I guess. This idea of like putting everything in a wagon and going somewhere and surviving.
Yep.
But so my brothers and I basically we had I think one tent and some sleeping bags and some cheap sleeping pads and maybe a cooler in the back of a tiny little sedan. And so we showed up at this camping area, and we basically we didn't even set up our tent because it was just there was no mosquitoes. We just slept on the ground, and just the pitying looks that we got from all these South
the horror,
Africans with their massive camping setups. They really thought like something was wrong with us. And I remember, I think it was maybe...
Are you boys okay then? You okay?
Exactly. Everyone basically thought we were going to die somehow because we didn't have enough bush knowledge as well. They were giving us all kind of advice about how to handle elephants and this sort of thing. But at some point...
The one thing with South Africans, they love to give you the benefit of their bush knowledge, even if they were sort of
which is
if they manage a little car tire warehouse or something like that, they'll still believe that they've got
it's in the blood,
bush knowledge.
Yep. I just remember a woman at some point with this pitying look on her face saying, "But how will you camp?" She couldn't believe that we were actually equipped to camp in this tiny sedan.
You probably didn't even have did you have your braai goods with you? You have any charcoal and boerewors with you?
We would basically buy a bag of charcoal, and then we would borrow a braai grate from somebody.
Okay.
That was how we cooked almost every night.
Okay.
So, but it was pretty modest compared to the typical South African braai setup.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic.
It was
You're making me miss South Africa now.
Shame. It was frigid, by the way. We went there, I think it was July.
I bet.
Which is the winter,
Right.
and the Kalahari winter is bloody cold. So it was around 20 degrees Fahrenheit at night, every night. I think that's part of why all these South Africans thought we were going to die without a better camping setup. But, if you have a good sleeping bag, you're fine.
This was freezing.
This was freezing. It was actually
Below
below
freezing.
below 0 Celsius. Yeah, it was frigid.
And you were just sleeping on the ground with a sleeping mat and a...
Yep.
Wow.
Perfectly fine with a good sleeping bag. Now, thoroughly
That's,
recommend Kalahari.
Kalahari. Yeah, it's a trip that I probably would have done if I hadn't have come to Thailand. I probably would have done it within a few months because it was a place that we were always talking about going to. But life took a different course. But no, hopefully when we get back there, we'll do a bit of traveling.
I actually would recommend if you're able to get a high clearance car, you'll get more out of it because there's one main road and we were confined to that one main road. But if you can do more of the side roads, you'll be able to explore a bit more.
Right. Yeah.
Well, maybe we
Okay,
should probably wrap it up there, eh? Yep.
Yeah, we'll leave it at 2, and we'll get back to to more of your mammals at a future date. But good to catch up. Good to hear some more stories.
I will let people know I'm heading out tomorrow for a couple weeks on the road, and I may or may not have connection or ability to record a podcast. So there may be another hiatus in the podcast. I'm going to some remote parts of northern Madagascar looking for a few cool animals I haven't seen, like blue-eyed black lemur. There's actually a plated lizard that I'm looking for, a frog. So I'm sure we'll talk about all that in a future podcast.
No, sounds great. And I'm gonna be staying with friends for a couple of nights, and on the way back I'm also gonna go to another couple of reserves, so I'll probably be heading back to Angkor Wat. Gonna give the sun bear another go. And there's a bird I'm looking for there as well, dusky broadbill, and you never know what you're going to see in that place. I saw a marbled cat there a few months ago, so it always comes up with something interesting. So we'll maybe spend a couple of nights there on the way back to Chiang Mai. So I'll let you know about that in future in a future episode. So, what are you going to play us out with anything today, Ken?
I can't think of a good natural sound associated with today's episode.
You know what? What we could do is maybe put on the green peafowl. That's a pretty cool wild sound that we listened to the other day. So, would that be cool?
Yep. Green peafowl it is.
Let's go with green peafowl for the day, and we will be catching up very soon. So
as soon as possible. Yep. We'll do an episode or two about our respective travels.
Yep. Sounds good.
All right. Well, travel safe. Thanks to everybody for listening.
Yep. Thanks for listening. Catch you next time.